Hey, Mikey, how are you?
I feel like this is a loaded question now, but I am fantastic. And how are you?
I'm doing great. I guess we're doing this again. This is great. Thank you so much for making time. I was thinking all week what's been on top of mind, and I know it's gonna be different than yours, so I figured I'd love to ask you first. Week's gone from last week, depending on how the week's been. What's on top of your mind?
Today is probably going to be more along the lines of employee value. And I did a post on LinkedIn that I'd love to talk more about. It was about a client of mine in Northland. It took me 3 months to, I guess, coach him to pay his staff $10 an hour more. And his response was always, but I'm paying market rate. I'm paying market rate. And I said, do you want to be the average of your peers, or do you want to have a greater competitive advantage? And he said, obviously a greater competitive advantage, Mikey. I said, awesome. Pay your staff more. He goes, but I need more leads. I said, pay your staff more. And he did. And straight away this month, we've seen no people have left or have seen that they're going to leave. Their employee engagement is much higher. They feel valued. And he's just had 2 new people sign up and join to leave the other companies. And I love this because what's happened is one of them actually rang and verbally abused him for stealing staff. And my response is, and this is a question to you, my response was quite simple. This sounds like it's their problem, not yours. And if they were treating their employees well, they wouldn't have considered leaving. What do you think?
Well, it's funny. I have a saying that I live by, and not that I'm saying it's applicable here, but this saying is all is fair in love and war. Now, I like that saying because it gives you permission to act with passion when I'm in safety mode, hence war, or love, which in a way is personal safety. I'm only going to, hopefully love truly, authentically. But also reminds me that that's the only 2 places where all is fair. Everything else falls in the it depends bracket. You see, my learning and this saying reminds me every time, because my first inclination is to agree with you and love what he did and say, oh, well, tough luck. It's a capitalistic market, right? Then that saying reminds me, maybe it isn't that simple. There is, whether we like it or not, whatever mantra you follow, unless you're an Apple or a Google or somebody who's got some monopolization, either through IP or through something that gives you the opportunity to say, listen, it's my way or the highway, then I would be more inclined to say, take the phone call, take the abuse, then have a chat and say, what can we do together? Now, if that person comes back and says, I want to do nothing together, and potentially declares war, remember, they declared war, not you, then it's really hard to, like I say, negotiate with terrorists. But this is work. This is not life or death. This is competitive market positioning. So I don't know, Mikey, to be honest. I don't know if that was, if he should not respond to this guy who called and abused him. Take the abuse. It's his reaction because he's obviously scared and feared. But I would say your guy's got an opportunity to rise above the cream and lead the way in a different way of treating employees. And that person may or may not listen.
I totally agree. And this is where I did get a little bit, I had to reflect on it for a while. Because obviously we work in banks and the ministries, and we're always stealing each other's employees, let's be fair. We don't do it intentionally, but there's only so many people with the skills that we need in our teams. But in the trades, it's even worse, Amar. When you look at the number of, say, electricians in Northland, there's only so many. It is almost a zero-sum game. It's a zero-sum game in the fact that it takes 3 years to create new electricians, or you need to take them from another company in Auckland or Wellington. And for those listening overseas, Northland has around 100,000 population in the entirety of Northland, which is the equivalent size of, well, what's an equivalent size, Amar?
Wales?
Probably not quite, but yeah, it's similar enough, yeah. And it's a very small area. But I said to him, there are two ways to win in business, especially in a zero-sum game environment, which doesn't always exist. I agree. We can collaborate together to create more value as an industry.
If they're willing.
If they're willing. Yeah, which they're not. It's really cutthroat. They all pretend to be friends, but they're not.
Yes.
There is take your customers from your competitors or take your employees from your competitors. Mm-hmm. And I had never thought about this before, but I'm not saying go out and actually target. I'm saying create an environment where your employees tell everyone in your industry what an amazing place is to work. So we've not only raised their wages and now by another $10. So they're now almost $16 above the average wage in not only Northland, but at least $8 above the nationwide average, which I find fantastic. Per hour, yeah. So hugely overpaid from a capitalist point of view. We have also ensured that we listen to them. They don't like being alone. Cool. Everyone's now got a partner that they run around in the van together. We've automated their jobs. We've created fun Fridays. They leave early on a Friday. And all these fun things that they want. They're now going around and telling all their mates who are also Sparkies how amazing it is to work for this company. And they're coming and saying, can I join? So not only are we finding people are not leaving, people are wanting to join, and the creme de la creme are rising to the top, which of course means your competitors can't complete their jobs on time. They've gone from 2 to 3 weeks waiting lists to 6-7 weeks waiting list. These companies we've impacted
because the contracting situation or
Correct.
Environment.
Mm-hmm. And my client has gone from 2 weeks waiting period to 3 days. So a customer rings 2 companies. One says, Kia ora koutou, this is this company. We can do that job for this amount in 3 days. Another company says, yep, we can do that job in 3 weeks. Who are you going to choose? Same price?
Yes.
And I thought this is really interesting conversation to have around employee value and whether or not the zero-sum game exists in the employee market, especially post-COVID. So my question to you, not only the morality side of things for this, which we know we touched on last week around morality is subjective, but also, is this a viable strategy in 2022 where organizations are struggling to find people? What do you think?
Yeah, you see, I feel the tactic solves a particular problem. It's like the whole battle versus war. And it really comes down to having that conversation, saying, what is the long-term vision, right? And some people don't have a long-term vision, and that's okay. Some companies are opening up just to make money to survive, and franchising and expanding is how they make money. So it's about being efficient, and hence the birth of the lean movement. Back in the 80s, that's really what it came down to. It's this innovation that makes a difference. So it's really come down to this company and their mission statement, long-term vision. How are they going to win in that infinite game of survival? Is it just availability? For example, I have a friend, not a client, and we're talking. He's like, "Oh, you're a coach in this innovation and stuff," and he's lowered his overhead, and he says, "I just want to get paid, and I have a skill, but I want to get more money." So I found a way to get junior contractors. I train them. I go on site, then I leave them to do the job, and I come back, check on them. And I've just gone to efficiency. And he goes, because the nature of my work is going in and fixing the plumbing, stripping out carpet and putting new carpet. And it made me think, it's not innovation. Now he can choose to be innovative because and bring in new material from Europe, make it long lasting. jump on the future, a capitalistic future of sustainability. At some point, everybody is going to be having to subject to our net zero carbon emission commitment, as a country, as a nation, as a responsible employer. So it really comes down to, again, it depends on the long-term vision. So what you described solved one problem. I'll be very curious to come back and visit him and see in a year's time if another problem got created, and if it just continues a domino effect, versus the long term.
I agree with you there, actually, because we don't know the impact of treating employees well, because most organizations do not treat employees well. They say they're empowered, but they have to say it, therefore they're not. They say that they can make decisions around outcomes, and yet there's an OKR strategy that tells them what to do every single week. They don't know where they play, which you touched on, actually. Have you seen the triangle that says where to play in terms of the 3 points are commoditization, so operational excellence, you have product innovation, and you have, what's the wording here? It is customer satisfaction, basically. So although all three make sense for organizations, one of the things that my professor once said to me was that the problem with New Zealand is that we try to do all of these things because we have very little competition globally, but that's changing. You look at things like operational excellence, that's things like AFCO, then product innovation, things like Nike. Local one for us would be probably Zero, product innovating.
Oh, yes, got globally.
Yep, they're focused on that, and they've gotten known for their innovation. And then customer centricity, things like Amazon. Amazon uses data-backed information to make the customer happy. They don't always innovate, and they don't always cut costs, but that's where they focus. And that's where they're like, where do you play? And a small business is quite hard because you should play in a lot of areas, but you should always have one focus or one mission statement, as you said. And I find it very fascinating that a lot of Kiwi companies and Australian companies, funny enough, don't tend to know where they play. Are we going to be innovators? Are we going to be customer centric? Or are we going to be operationally excellent? And you're completely correct when you say, if you focus on the employee, which is a completely different left field avenue that I've never touched before, which is why I'm raising it, actually focusing on the employee, where does the new problem find itself in a year from now, 2 years from now? Or have we hit the nail on the head? Is actually focusing on people the most important thing? I'm curious as well. I'm very curious.
Yeah, I mean, top of mind. I wonder, by making one change, and I know you recognize the system thinking approach to thing. Cool. We upped the price per employee, or the rate. We're paying more, and there's some buddy system and answer some questions. We made a change. I wonder what other system changes that need to be addressed that haven't. For example, quality. Is there an unwritten expectation of a higher quality because I'm paying you more? Is there expectation of higher engagement? Hence, maybe the employer or the owner of this company expects more of them, saying, "I'm paying you more. Can't you solve it on your own?" Is there a vetting process during recruitment or listen, we pay more, you're right, this is the place to be. We also demand more because we are about quality. We're not just stealing employees. Maybe it is just about, if I can just get enough people the job and get the job in 3 days instead of 3 weeks, I will get the client job. And it's just a basic 1, 2, 3, get this done. If somebody's experienced, it's good enough. And all is right. But I wonder if he thinks of that, or go back and say, great, have you made other changes? Like do you vet them? Well, what do you mean? I use this. I'm like, have you changed that? If you're paying top dollar now, don't you feel you have the right to say,
how do you get the best of the best?
More? Yeah. Can I get more references? For example, instead of 2, I want 3, or I want a reference to people who you like and one person who doesn't like you. You got the job, but I want to hear what part didn't work out, and that kind of stuff. So hence the employer, there's a sense of power balance, I believe, in relationships. It sounds naive, sounds kind of evil, Doesn't have to be, but it can be. So it's not something, I haven't found the right words around it. But in any relationship, it's a balance. I pay you more, and then it's like, what do you want more? What do you want? Am I supposed to be loyal? Do you expect, so if somebody else pays me again $5 more, you shouldn't be pissed off if I leave you and go there,
No, absolutely
right?
not.
So yeah, but I'm sure he will. It's like, I paid all this much and I cut my operational profit, and now you're going to leave me. There's no loyalty. It's like, well, you started this game of, you know, of
Oh, it definitely needs to be a race. I mean, this is a trades. And I mean, I remember when I first learned business, I was always told a 33 rule. It was 33% went to the employees, 33% went to the cost of trade, and 33% was profit.
Oh, okay.
And it was a very simple rule. It never worked, but it was a very simple rule to understand.
Aspirational, yeah. It's what you want to look at spending. So if you think of spending this much, is it a third, or is it more? Is it like half? Then you got to think twice.
It kind of made total sense. And then, of course, that's just net profit on the attribute. Then you have all these other costs that bring your profit down to somewhere in the region of 10, 20% return on your investment, which is nice. However, I've been evaluating businesses now for at least 20 years. Everything from bookkeeper, accountant, to consultant, to
Butcher.
startup, butcher. Yeah, butcher. Got to get a butcher. And I look at all these businesses. They all want way more profit, and they want to drive the employee costs down. And we look at the costs now per productivity here in New Zealand, and we look at actually how much value. And I'm not going to bring in labor theory of value too much into the conversation, but a lot of businesses, it's their labor that is actually the main part of the business, and yet they're making anywhere between 8 to 10%, and that's if you're lucky. And it makes you wonder: have we set up ourselves to be so top heavy that all we're causing is lower barriers to entry for competitors? I'll give you an example. Trades. Once you become a qualified Sparky, you can just get a van and some tools. In fact, the tools you already own. Guess what? I love this. I did not know this, but most trades have to go and buy their own tools to work for a company.
Yes, you used to show up with your own tools, and
Wow.
and they may brand your van. I believe, well, a simple model that I've seen. They'll brand the van, they'll fit it out for you, but you bring the van, you bring the tools, and they'll get that organized. Pretty compartments in there, if anything.
But this is beautiful. This is what I find so amazing.
And I think sell you the parts at wholesale price. So hence they're eating, they're successfully on both sides.
Yeah.
The spare parts and the commission of labor.
So this is why I always want to, from an agility point of view, or just a business common sense point of view, we shouldn't focus purely on our own industries, because this is what's going on outside. It's very fascinating, because let's say Amar, you run a Sparky business and I'm your apprentice. I have to go buy my own tools. I travel with some guy in his van, and I learned the trade for 3 years. Now I own my own tools. I know exactly how to start my own business, and I'm just going to go do it. And why wouldn't I? I'm being paid $27 an hour, and I know the client's charging 60 to 70 an hour. I know all I need is a van. If I don't need a van, I can just do it in my car, and I shall find a business. And how do I find business? I put an ad up on the paper. The industry is ripe for disruption. And I think a lot of industries are ripe for disruption, especially when they take advantage of their employees, when they don't think of things, and without imaginary barriers to entry. Look at banks.
Yes.
I think you and me on a few beers and a whiteboard could create a new bank overnight.
Yes.
I don't think that's going to be too hard, but could we create a bank? No, we need to have approval. There's a barrier to entry. So, and if you look at Simon Wardley's maps around open markets versus closed markets, and the lack of innovation around closed markets is so obvious. Banks don't innovate because they don't need to, because it's a barrier to entry. But there are so many industries that we can disrupt massively by opening them up. And I like your approach, open collaboration. Offer it, see if it works.
Yeah, I just see, you can see you see stories of just being open for ideas. You may not agree with the idea, but it might put another idea in your head. But I'll go back to your point, Mikey. You're right. Somebody comes in, buys their own tools, joins in. 3 years later, they know how to use their own tools. They know how to drive the van. They potentially know some main repeat clients. That person individually doesn't need to have all the bells and whistles and getting so many clients to survive. They probably can take 2 or 3, and that pays a lot of the bills. But you know what it is? I think we're it's more of a historical, habitual thing. So this model has been around for donkey's years, right? And back to your point of barriers of entry, even this, back then, creating a website, marketing yourself, is hard. It was only, company had to get an IT guy or IT girl to sit in the room and make the website, and they can take orders. But now it's become so easy. But habitually, that's what you do. You join a firm and you go around with them, and it does squash a little bit of innovation. And I believe, and it's something that just came to my mind from Seth Godin's book. He's got a book, Icarus Deception. He goes, we've been programmed from school to people to employers to this kind of environment, especially in the trade environment. This is how you do things. And if you were to leave and go on your own, oh, no. You may not survive. You won't get anything. But then if you do the math, it makes sense because a lot of overhead is taken away. It's straight into your pocket. Client relationship, again, in your pocket. If you're kind of good with people, you're there. Tools and quality, you will keep improving the more you do work. So if you're good, you get better. If you're not good, you will get good. But that psychological fear of what if he or she was right? And without me having this t-shirt and part of this team, that really all it is maybe a receptionist or receptionist taking phone calls, booking some calls, looking at a calendar, saying, Mikey can come out in 3 weeks versus in 3 days. There's nothing else. So I think Seth Godin was talking about the revolution that people will go to, and even innovation isn't so much about, doesn't have to be product, but it's even approach. It's so much easier. I recently had to find a tradie to come and do some renovation, just the rain and the leak. I discovered a website called New Zealand Cowboys.
That's right.
I thought it was like I thought it was a stripper website. What the hell is that? And it basically it's like it's like a location. You're in Torbay in Auckland, and these are the trades they're really close to. And guess what? The crowdsourcing feedback and reviews is what gave me confidence to call some random person, never heard of that company name. So no longer am I reliant on the big brand to say, oh, that's trustworthy. I rely on the feedback that person is getting. Going, look, I'll call James and his wife to come and look at waterproofing our place. Simple. I called 3, 2 didn't have time, and they weren't bothered. Third says, I happen to be working up the road from your address. Let me come by. So I think the future, a lot of these companies that rely on older models, because of the innovation that's happening in different parts of our industry, it will instigate innovation in other parts of the industry. The plumbing practice or industry discipline may have a whole change due to the innovation of free internet, faster phones, cheaper phones. Talk about entry to market, just the tools to create a website on WordPress, on Nix or whatever it's called, Wix, I think, and you can just make one and someone just guides you through it. Yeah.
But to be honest, Amar, we've reached the end now of even needing a website. So I've been pitching this idea. So hopefully someone online who listens to this will take my idea. Remember, everyone, ideas are worthless. Implementation's everything. So here's a $1 billion idea for you, right? When you want something, let's say you want a light fitting, Amar, you want to change the light fitting, right? What's the value in that for you?
Well, it's cost of my time, correct? And then what the light or the extra light or the light in the room does for me, allow me to work maybe, or read a book or feel comfortable, right?
All around the light, right? It's not about the Sparky. The Sparky gives you no value. He just enables
No.
you to get the value from the light fitting that you want. So my idea is very simple. And this is where I think disruption is going to happen in the future when you Uberify these kind of ideas. You go on a website on your phone, you pick a light fitting out, it looks pretty good. You go, awesome. I want that installed on this date in this area. It gives you a price, $129 installed. The back end goes out and finds the right tradie with the right amount of references using machine learning, who's available on that date and that time and that price point. The light fitting gets delivered to the door the same time that the tradie turns up.
Yes. I just shop. Yeah.
The tradie
Yes.
installs it, and you've just
Yes.
used ubersparky.com to
Yes.
do your order. You don't care who the Sparky is. You just trust that ubersparky.com has actually validated that order. The same way, I don't care which taxi driver I've got. I just know
Or
that
the Uber Eats, right? That's a good point.
Uber Eats.
I thought as long as I get my McDonald's, doesn't matter who comes over, and I'll.
But I have an
thank
escalation
you
point
so
that's
much.
trustworthy, right? So
Yes.
this is where I think the future of business is going to go. I had a conversation, I know we're over time, and apologies for that. I had a conversation with some adult coaches about 8 years ago, and I remember this very clearly. And I said, the future of organizations is going to be 6-person bands. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, there will no longer be 600-person companies. There'll be 6-person companies or individuals. And the software, the automation will link those people together to create value. And they thought I was Barney at the time. But as we start to see things, we're seeing contractors moving on, we're seeing startups being created, and they're all leveraging the technology and the giants of the past. I've got a new startup coming up called Nectar, doing exactly that. People are going to be able to basically say, I want this outcome. And Nectar is going to go and use machine learning to build your team around the outcome you want to decide and deliver that outcome for the price you want.
Nice.
That's the future. None of those people need websites. None of
Correct.
those
I mean, to be
people.
honest, yeah. Isn't that how Airbnb is, Uber is?
Exactly.
Trade Me, Archipro, they're just the connection. It's what was the guy? That's what it is. Seth Godin talking about. We're now in the connection era.
I love that.
It's about connection. Instead of coming from commodity, we're about connections. The connection revolution is really gonna be the winning.
Yeah, it's
solution for
this
next
new
generation.
think about how brains work, neuroconnectivity. I think the neuroconnectivity around, Web 3.0, decentralized assets between blockchain and trust. You link all those together with the fact that we have 5G, 6G coming up. We've got augmented reality. You don't need to trust someone because you trust the system, trust someone. I see a future where every individual will be running their own company, but it won't be like today, where it's stress of understanding when your next paycheck's coming. And then the true labor theory of value will come into play, which is what we said at the start of this episode around, is it right to increase the wages? Well, it won't even matter anymore, because what will happen is you'll get paid a percentage, which will be in line with what you want in your blockchain contract.
Yes. And blockchain is going to open up so many opportunities to automate things. And I think this is really going to be, I guess, the putting some truth to that little theory of about 50 years ago about machines taking over the jobs of humans. And this could be the start. Imagine
totally
banks
agree.
shrinking out government agencies. I believe they'll take the longer. I think they'll be the fastest, because all they want is solutions, and they'll be bound by people and governing laws. And the minute they can find that solution through blockchain, from the certification to identity, then that's it. All the thousands of employees sitting processing things manually and still using faxes will all be a thing of the past, right?
I 100% agree with you. And when you think about the science around high-performing team dynamics, we know that 3 people is the most high-performing team you can get. 4 is okay. 5 is too many, hence why Scrum has changed their documentation now to almost be elusive in the fact. But everyone knows Scrum promotes 7 plus or minus 2. At the end of the day, that's too many people. If you want true team dynamics, it's 3 people. Now imagine that I'm sitting here in Wanganui, New Zealand right now in an office by myself, and all I need is 2 friends let's call it Amar and John. And me, Amar, and John are going to completely innovate what we do, our niche custom segmentation, and the machine automation is going to basically get our clients for us. And we're going to not have fear. Let's play back to last episode, which will drive innovation, and we will attain the true value of our labor without the overheads and bureaucracy of corporations. I'm sorry, leaders who listen to this, if you don't step up right here, right now, your companies will fail.
That's lovely. Interesting as usual. I mean, it makes you think every time, right? I mean, it's a bold statement, and I know what you mean. It's like we can't see in the future. I can't guarantee it'll fail, but we actually care. We don't want you to fail. There may be a little bit of frustration in some of people in our industry's tone of voice, but it's because we mean well. It will shake things up. Things will change, and I don't think we're ahead of our time. I think the industry is behind its time. So we just want everybody to catch up, and I don't want people to lose jobs just because they're blindsided. I want people to know. So they start thinking, okay, how can I be sustainable? How can I disrupt my world for the greater good, for the greater good of my family, and sustainable? So I can, if anything was to happen, I lose my day-to-day paying job, my day job of 9 to 5, I'm okay. Thank you so much for the experience. I do know what to do now on my own.
And I don't think they'll lose a job. I think what will happen is they'll lose a job they have currently. And when we look at those stats, even at the bank over in, where was it? Not IAG. Was it IAG? Might be IAG. They
insurance company, IAG.
No, I'm getting it wrong then. AIG, the bank over in Netherlands.
Oh yes. They
had a beautiful case study, but I use it as a fear-based system. They reduced their FTEs by 35%. 80% of those were leaders, and of those leaders, all of them were the ones who failed to adapt to their new environment. Adaptive leadership for adaptive organizations that respond to customers' needs in a flexible way.
Yes, it's ING.
ING, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah.
Beautiful case study.
But you're right. I think, but that makes sense. I mean, to be honest, why we are seeing people less open to change, because the biggest risk, right, and people who feel it the most are the people who are actually in charge of the change. It's like politicians, right? They're the ones that are impacted the most versus everybody else when a new law change happens. Same with a leader or an executive, it's hard for them to get another job. It's not like me and you, we can get other jobs. But if I'm an executive, very high profile, I can't just apply for another job, So yes, and so we hold on. So the fear is high, adverse to risk, and I don't blame them. So, we do owe it. I guess being aware of these things, we do have that responsibility to reduce risk, do micro shifts of changes, and allow things to fall in its place organically, while in situations where people may not be required, may not be a job required for that manual opportunity, in a calm way, we can actually find the IP, the knowledge, that individual, shifted to another part of the company, and maybe we don't need it, and it's helping to rehome an employee because they are in your duty of care. So imagine that balance of caring about people, but also return on investment and value. Back to your first example, I raise rates. Why? Because I want you to come over, and I want you to show up, and I want to maintain the customer relationship and the quality that we do as a Sparky. So that shouldn't change. If anything, you should be happier. You should be happier, and hence you'll show up even better.
I totally agree. And I want to re-emphasize that I hate this mantra that goes around some of the big consultancy companies about we can save you 35% of your FTE. I find it appalling. The fact of the matter is, if you can reduce your FTE by 30%, put those people to better use where they're intrinsically motivated to deliver value. That is your competitive advantage. Your people are your competitive advantage. Don't just sack
But
them.
Mikey, check this out, the other way around. A consulting firm, right? We always bag on them, and they're big enough and rich enough to take it, so they don't mind. But I don't think it's their fault. I show up to a company, someone says, we have to be efficient. Say, okay, let me have a look. And I go, cool, give me a list of everything you do. Where's the money going? And you look at the systems you bought. Why'd you buy this system? It's archaic and expensive to do. There's a reason. Okay. Why'd you have 25 employees doing this job? Well, for the longest time, we haven't looked at the process, and the team just kept growing. So it just is. It is what it is. So the consulting firm that we like to bag on is just lifting up the hood of this company or organization, allowing itself to get fat and inefficient and slow. So of course, the consulting firm is like, listen, I'm not the one who shaved 30% FTE. You're the one. And I think those who are publicly saying it are probably making an assumption, and maybe 8% time they were correct. A lot of our corporations have just gotten inefficient, and fat and lazy, and hence it's probably going to be what's going to happen.
I actually agree with you. Don't worry, I do.
You know
agree.
what I mean? Yeah.
I don't blame the consultancy companies. They are merely achieving the outcome that the board normally want them to achieve. It's just I wish people would understand that if you have 1,000 people and you remove 300, there's 300 people of IP that you could put somewhere where they're more intrinsically motivated to achieve value.
Yes.
And that's beautiful.
Imagine ethically, with the knowledge, how to say, with knowledge comes power, right? And it comes a responsibility. If I am that big consulting firm and I have data and I have stats, and I know that most companies, most people are probably going to be going down the route of cutting 30% FTE, how about on the sidelines, I start creating awareness programs? Because I'm sure it sucks for them to show up and be the ones going, oh yeah, I know what you're going to do. Cut heads. I'm like, I'm not actually cutting heads. You're the one who just got to this point where you left me no choice but to cut heads, because you told me you want to reduce your, you want to reduce your operational cost. So there's a real responsibility. I feel that maybe hasn't been taken on, and I see a lot of companies doing that now, where on the side they go say, listen, let me equip you with knowledge, wisdom. If you call us, it's too late. We're going to cut heads. But before you do, let me let you know there are these efficient techniques. There is, everything from lean, agile, holacracy. There are different approaches, automation systems now that are available to do things. So awareness is there. Now, if they're not going to jump on board and not take advantage, and then it's a point where, a firm or a consulting agency or somebody, could be just a new manager coming in and printing out the numbers on an Excel sheet. At that point, it's really unfair to blame the person who just points out the obvious. Where's the recursive blame? But I feel things are changing. I feel there's a duty of care with that knowledge, because it's just happened one too many times. So things are changing. They have to, right? Even the big companies and the consulting firms won't survive if they just hang on the laurels of always doing the same thing.
I totally agree. And that's a great place to finish this episode. We've covered some actually really interesting topics today. Thank you, Amar, for this, because we've gone through back to almost fear-based innovation, what causes impacts across the field, employee value, and the right, not right and wrong, a way of redistributing value across the system. Nice.
Yes. And if I can just hop on one thing, if you forget anything that I said, the expression all's fair in love and war is an expression meaning only in love and war. But everything else it depends. There's ethics, there's a conversation to be had, and there's a bigger picture to look at. So let's be kind. Let's lead with love, and let's be curious.
I love my business.
This is great talking to you, Mikey. This is a great way to finish my Fridays. And thank you so much for talking to me. Thanks for everybody for making time to listen. Hopefully we don't ramble too much.
Beautiful. Thanks, Amar.
Take care, my friend.